What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nintendo Land, and today we are ranking 20 different copy abilities from Kirby and the Forgotten Land to see which is the best in the game. Now, the reason I said 20 is because we will not be including every single first level ability, as lots of the time the second and third levels are just a little bit better versions, literally in both stats, whether it be power or quickness, so lots of the first evolutions will not be here. Now, there are second evolutions that are kind of different than the third one, and sometimes it depends on the user which one could be better, and I'm going to try to see which one has the most potential out of the second and the third ones as well. So that gives us a list of 20 unique Kirby copy abilities in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and we are going to rank them for you. Now, of course, as always, there are going to be spoilers here, especially towards the end, as there are extra copy abilities to be unlocked, so if you don't want to see those, definitely tune out of this video. But thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get on to the list. Coming in at number 20, starting off our list, we have Deep Sleep. Now, this once again is just an evolved version of Sleep. It heals Kirby, yes, but that's really about it. All it does is allow Kirby to lay in a bed and kind of rest up. And obviously, this is probably going to be one of the worst on this list just because it doesn't really do anything. Now, it can also sometimes give him a stat boost. For instance, this time it gave me 200 extra power. So, yeah, I guess it does something, but it's just really not super ideal, and there's not lots of sleep enemies to pick up this ability around the world. Crash Kirby is really just not that good. You obviously get to only use it one time, so you could make it useful on certain bosses, and I think with regular bosses, it takes away half of their health. With mini bosses, it completely kills them. So it really just depends on what you want to do, but you have to charge it for a long time for it to be really wide and powerful, which is hard to do when enemies are attacking you and rushing towards you. You can't really get that charge off. So a regular just charge attack is just going to do a decent amount of damage, still probably leaving enemies in the arena around you. Time Crash Kirby is slightly better than Crash, and I included it because it has a different effect completely. This allows Kirby to slow down time around him, and eventually that orb around him will get smaller and smaller, but in order to keep it growing, you have to continue to hit enemies around Kirby. This will continue the slow motion going and allow Kirby to continue to hit more enemies that's in his area. It's just not a wide range one-time attack. You can actually keep it going as long as there's enemies around you, which could be pretty useful. Also, the fact that it slows down time, which is really cool. There's not a lot of things in the game that utilize this, but it's just another cool effect with it. Twin Drill, the third evolution of Drill, is just the best of the drills, straight up. It has two drills. It allows Kirby to hit enemies while he's underground with a blade saw coming out of the ground, and it shoots up two rocket drills when he comes out of the ground. And it's just a lot faster to use and a lot longer in the dirt than the other ones. It's definitely the best drill, but how is it as an actual attack? Not that good. You can't really just walk up and start hitting people. You're gonna have to always drill underground in order to attack them, which isn't always the best for mini bosses and bosses, as getting really close can actually harm you in the long run. It's good for a crowd of enemies, as you can circle around them and cause a whole bunch of spires of rock to come out of the ground and hurt them, but with the bigger enemies, not really good at all. Storm Tornado is the best form of all the tornadoes. It's literally just a higher level up. And let me be honest, I never really liked Tornado in any Kirby games. I feel like it just kind of sporadically moves, but this time in a 3D space, you can control it a lot better. Especially with Storm Tornado, which allows Kirby to spin a giant storm of clouds and suck in things nearby. It actually sucks in enemies, coins, and all types of objects in the stage, and then spits them back out, shooting them at more enemies, which is actually very useful. You can use this for a long time and hover over spikes and other types of gaps in the terrain, and even make Kirby's way to things that you otherwise couldn't reach. I think this is really cool, but the time you get it, it's kind of useless because it's at the end of the game and you're really just going to want to have some hard-hitting copy ability, and it just kind of comes too late. Gigant Sword is the second evolution for the sword ability, and you're going to wonder why this one's actually just appearing at all. Well, the fact that it has a completely different stance compared to every other sword. This one, you're wielding a giant sword, so Kirby's not just throwing this around really quickly. Instead, he's using big, powerful swings. So this is for the type of player that likes big, heavy swinging characters in their video games. And he does a lot of damage. Not to mention, he also has a shield that can block pretty much almost anything in the game, which makes him a very viable contestant to be one of the best. Now, the reason why I didn't like him that much is because to get a really good hit in, you had to be very patient, using a lot of defense and a lot of charging up with the sword, which is just going to take a lot of calculation that I'm just not here for. I'm a more quick type of person, so it's not for me. But I feel like a lot of people would love this because it is a lot of damage when you know how to utilize it best, and it has a great shield. Chakram Cutter Kirby has the ability to throw tons of chakrams, but just not a lot of damage. It's really nice to get a lot of those out when there's a large group of small enemies, but once again, when you get to some of those bigger enemies, it's really kind of underwhelming, such as the mini-bosses and the bosses, but it can clear out a room pretty quick and keep you safe by throwing rings pretty much all around Kirby. Needle is another item that I was never really that fond of because you had to get so close and it was kind of just hard to straight up hit enemies and bosses, and once again, it kind of is the same thing here. Hitting bosses and mini-bosses is hard because you gotta get so close to them. Yes, you can pick up their stars and chuck them at them now, which is really nice, but you still kind of gotta get close and risk yourself getting hit. But Crystal Needle is really good. It leaves a trail of crystals behind Kirby, and he can also roll now and get up on higher places when there's like a step above him, which is really cool. The momentum continues, which I love, and the fact that you can just continue to roll over and pick up enemies and move on, but also you get to chuck those enemies, like I said, back out when you're finished at something that you're aiming at, which is really fun to chuck at a bigger enemy, and it does have its purpose when it comes to that. Number 12, we have Noble Ranger. It's the second evolution, and it's a little bit different than the final evolution because you can fire a lot quickly. It's not that powerful, but you now have two guns that Kirby can wield, and he can blast multiple different stars out at one area. Now, this is once again good for crowd control. Lots of enemies coming towards you in a line or something, you can continue to blast them, and even if you hold a charge and you can shoot into a crowd of enemies, that's a lot of stars covering a lot of area. And it's good to also do the little hover attack in the air, which allows many stars to come out from underneath Kirby, protecting him from below and in front. It's a good power-up, just not super strong. For number 11, we have Wild Hammer, and let me tell you, the second evolution is on this list as well. Yeah, I know, the third evolution is worse than the second. Hear me out. Once again, this comes to playstyle. If you're one of those more defensive, powerhouse style characters, this one's obviously for you. But this one just took too long to charge up. It just felt bulkier, heavier, and slower than some of the other evolutions that we get to see later on. This one's just not that good to me. It's strong, don't get me wrong, and it's very powerful sitting at number 11. It's just in the middle of the road because, once again, it can completely devastate a mini-boss or a boss, but you could also get completely devastated by any type of characters or enemies that move a little quicker than normal. Now we officially make it to the top 10 best abilities in the game, and at number 10 we have Blizzard Ice. Ice is very good in this game because it can freeze any enemy and any boss if you spray long enough. And the ice completely devastates their bar. Their health bar will drop significantly, allowing you to continue to attack even when they're frozen. This is a really good ability, allowing Kirby to traverse over poison and even lava and fire, and he can continue to spam the attack button in order to surround himself in a block of ice that completely freezes over and freezes enemies nearby, also leaving a trail of crystal shards, get what I did there, behind him in order to stab people that are coming up. It's a very good ability, and as someone that once again doesn't really like ice that much, they definitely up the ante with ice in this game. Dragon Fire is the third evolution of fire, and it's not the only fire on this list. Yeah, this fire just wasn't the best for me. Yeah, the dash attack is longer, and it's a bigger, wide, sweeping attack, and it lasts longer, but it's just not that good. It's not really practical in order to take out a lot of enemies or anything like that. And the regular fire breathes longer and further, but still, I feel like it's harder to control. I feel like the damage isn't quite there, and it's just not the same as some of the other ones, or at least the other one that we see later on. It's just not really as good as I was hoping it would be. Number 8, we have Volcano Fire. I think this one is slightly better just because it shoots molten rock instead of just a flame. I feel like Kirby's flame attack is harder to move from left to right, where with the magma balls that he shoots out with Volcano, he can pretty much spew them in any direction, and they do a lot more damage on impact, and I just feel like they're a lot stronger. You still have your dash attack, and you can do two medium, length ones very quickly, and I feel like with the dragon a dash attack, it just kind of goes too long. It lasts too long in the air and it has a slower startup compared to the Volcano one. Number 7, we have the Homing Bomb. Now, this was just another step up from the Chain Bomb, as the bombs still chain, but this time they can seek into enemies, and they can lock on and follow them with these little wheels like they're little drones, and travel all the way across the stage to reach them, which is a lot of fun. It's a cool, unique idea. The damage just once again isn't quite there, but once you finally get the chains down is when it really starts to pack a punch. But that's what's really hard about this one, is since the bombs are all moving, it's hard to get the chain connected all the time because they're already chasing after an enemy to blow up. so it's harder to get that chain explosion, which makes it a little bit difficult to use, but it still is a really good weapon. Coming in at number 6, we have the Toy Hammer. I actually really like the Toy Hammer, and I think it's way better than Wild Hammer. It's a lot quicker, and it just got a better feel to it. I don't know, I like the little squishy feel and just the look of him with his little helmet and, of course, his bright giant hammer. Now, when you do your slam attack after holding an attack after jumping, it actually bounces Kirby off the ground in a good way that continues his momentum, which I like a lot better than the Wild Hammer, which kind of has a more brutal slam than a bounce off the ground. And the fact that it's just a lot quicker, you get a lot more attacks out, and the giant hammer's damage just isn't good enough when it comes to its speed as well, because it just takes too long to charge up a good attack before the enemy is already hitting you. I really like the Toy Hammer, and I think it's one of the best. Now we are down to our final 5 abilities, and at number 5 we have Morpho-Knight Sword. After gaining this ability at the Coliseum after defeating Meta Knight for the first time, you get his sword and mask. This allows Kirby to spin a lot longer and also have different laser attacks that he can shoot out of his sword when he's at full health, which is awesome to kill enemies from afar. And he can do all types of stuff by also sliding and jumping in the air to cause this kind of weird flying around attack that I can't even explain what it is. He kind of flies around the air and then finally strikes down with one final blow with a little bat effect coming from the, blue lasers and stuff and the blue aura from the sword. It's a really cool ability, but it's more visual, I feel like, than anything. It is a stronger sword and is one of the strongest attacks and abilities in the game, but it can be kind of useless against certain bosses that attack really fast. Buzzsaw Cutter is one of the best abilities in this game. It throws giant saw blades across the stage, and they even ricochet and bounce off of walls. And they do a heck of a lot of damage. For it not having as fast as a mobility option as Chakram Cutter, this is still extremely fast for something that does this much damage. And when you do your melee attack up close, it can seriously take almost half of the enemy's life from a mini boss. Seriously, it's insane. This thing is extremely powerful against mini bosses, and even hordes of enemies. It's definitely one of the best pickups. Now to the final 3 best abilities in the game. Number 3, you have Masked Hammering. You get this ability by completing the story mode and talking to King DDD at the end, and you'll get these blueprints. Now, these are just dual-wielding hammers. Yes, dual-wielding hammers with Kirby, and he's able to shoot fire effects out of them as well, such as slamming on the ground, causing tornadoes to appear, and a very quick charge for a very quick spin attack. This is one of the most powerful abilities in the game, and also one of the quickest, which makes it an absolute threat and a terror to any enemy or boss that you're fighting. This is a very good ability, and obviously you don't get it until the very end, but combining fire effects and the powerful effects of the hammer and quick effects gives you something very insane. Now, those of you that have already completed the game all the way through will obviously know what number 1 is on this list, but let me tell you, it's a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Space Ranger is so insane in this game, and let me tell you why. This thing will mow through enemies with a single shot, especially if you level it up at all. And yes, you can level up any copy ability. I think to +3 is the highest it might be. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you can shoot many different enemies, and it actually locks onto them without you even having to hold the button down. So you can mow through levels just barely shooting enemies. Many bosses can seriously die with just 2 charge shots. That's how powerful this thing is, and they melt through regular bosses. When you use a charge shot all the way through on its 3rd charge, it actually shoots a giant orb of energy, which actually stuns the boss a little bit, preventing them from attacking right away, which allows you to charge up yet again another charge shot. That's still not it. Kirby can do a quick dodge at the last second and fire rapid bursts of laser fire, and they do a heck of a lot of damage. And he can also shoot out little zap orbs when doing a dash attack and jumping in the air. It's absolutely insane. Not to mention that it can also shoot enemies that fly off into the background, such as King DDD and even Clawline when she climbs up the catwalk tower. It's crazy, and even the final boss can be shot in mid-air sometimes when they're approaching and when they fly away, which is just crazy. And the number 1 best copy ability in Kirby and the Forgotten Land is the Morpho-Knight Sword. Obviously, after completing the post-game and defeating Morpho-Knight, you can obtain his Morpho-Knight Sword, which is just unfair. It gives you the ability to charge up instead of spinning all the time. You can charge up for a light spin or a hard charge for a completely giant Gigant Sword, bigger than the Gigant Sword. This thing is a towering monster that completely devastates enemies, bosses, and mini-bosses alike. And you can keep recharging it to get it to grow over and over and over again. It has a cooldown for a little bit, but it's not really even a cooldown because it just goes away and you can get it back right away by just charging up once again. This also has fire effects and the ability to just completely swing it like it's a regular sword, as if it's not even that big. Also at full health, the sword has the ability to shoot lasers like Meta-Knight's sword, but of course they're bigger and stronger and with fire effects this time around. But Kirby can also do a quick dodge, which makes him teleport. Yes, he can teleport, and it sometimes, if you do it at the right time, teleports straight to the boss for you to follow up with more attacks. I mean, come on. This ability may not be the best against some later bosses as they're moving too quick and you might want to keep a distance and not really get too close, but this still has more. If you're taking damage, you actually gain a little bit of health each time you smack something. Yes, you gain health for hitting your enemies. Come on, this thing is unbelievable, and the shield is pretty much him just holding the giant sword up in front of his face, and it blocks pretty much everything. Yes, you may take a little bit of nick damage, but I mean, this thing has it all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this list, let me know in the comments down below what you thought, and also your list if it's a little bit different than mine. It probably will be. Once again, this is just my opinion, not based on any type of actual evidence of fact from Nintendo. This is just kind of what I pieced together from all the copy abilities, so take that with a grain of salt. If you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and maybe I'll do something like a mouthful mode ranking, and also, of course, the boss ranking, which is coming up. But thank you so much for tuning in, and like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.